Hello, this is Yogeshwar 7000 again, and I'm back with another very interesting topic on Vedic astrology. And today we will be talking about the son of Saturn. And who's the son of Saturn? The son of Saturn is called Gulika, Gulika. Actually, the Sanskrit word is Gulik without the A, but when we translate something into English, we generally put an A in front of it. Like instead of Ram, we say Rama. Instead of Krishna, we say Krishna. So similarly, for Gulik, we call it as Gulika in English terminology. So we'll be talking about this planet, which is the son of Saturn. However, the son of Saturn, Gulika, has not been given the status of a complete planet. It is kind of a subplanet, and of course we know that the main 9 planets are the Sun, the Moon, Mars, Mercury, Jupiter, Venus, Saturn, Rahu and Ketu, these 9 planets. And of course we also know that Rahu and Ketu are shadow planets. They don't have a physical body. Similarly, the son of Saturn, Gulika, does not have a physical body. So this is just a point in the zodiac, and which represents itself in our birth charts when we are born. And it's considered to be extremely malefic, just like Saturn is a malefic planet. So it's only natural that Saturn's sun is going to be malefic as well. Now, some astrologers, according to some astrologers and according to some astrological ancient scriptures, Saturn has 2 suns, not one. So we just talked about Gulika, which is the son of Saturn, but actually according to some astrological scriptures, Saturn has 2 sons called Gulika and Mandi, which is spelled as Mandi, Mandi. But according to some, Mandi and Gulika are same. And not a whole lot has been discussed about these shadow planets or these astrological malefic points in the zodiacs called Gulika and Mandi. Like I said, that according to a few astrologers, Gulika and Mandi are the same, and according to a few astrologers, Gulika and Mandi are 2 different subplanets or 2 different astrological points in the zodiac which are represented in our horoscopes. But today, in specific terms, we will be talking only about Gulika, and we'll make the assumption that Gulika and Mandi are one for the time being, and then later on, as we unfold the mysteries of Vedic astrology, we can discuss further. But right now, let's just talk about Gulika. Either you can assume that Gulika and Mandi are one, or you can even assume that we are just talking about Gulika today, because Sage Parashara has also mentioned in his ancient scripture about Gulika very clearly. So what has been talked about Gulika? And Sage Parashara very clearly states in his Shastra or his scripture that whichever portion is ruled by Saturn is actually the portion of Gulika. And when he means by portions, he has given us a way of calculating the position of Gulika in the birth chart. So how it is done is, you calculate how many hours are in daytime, meaning which you subtract the sunrise or the sunset from the sunrise. So whatever number of hours are there, that is the daytime. And then you divide this daytime into 8 portions. Okay? And the 8 portions are representative of the 7 planets, which are of course the Sun, the Moon, the Mars, Mercury, Jupiter, Venus and Saturn. And the 8th portion has been given no Lord. So the rule is, take the daylight time which you can figure out through sunrise and sunset, and divide it into 8 portions. The 7 portions are going to be representative of the 7 planets, and the last portion has no lord. And Sage Parashar has said whichever portion is ruled by Saturn will be the portion of Gulika, or that's where Gulika is going to be. So how do we figure out where Gulika is in a birth chart? It should be in the same order. Say for example, the birth of that person is on a Sunday. So you calculate how many hours are there in daytime and divide it into 8 portions. The first portion is going to be ruled by Sun. The second portion is going to be ruled by Moon. The third portion is going to be ruled by Mars. The fourth portion is going to be ruled by Mercury. The fifth portion is going to be ruled by Jupiter. The sixth portion is going to be ruled by Venus. And the seventh portion is going to be ruled by Saturn, just like the same order of the weekdays. And the eighth portion is going to be ruled by nobody. Okay, so we get 8 portions. So say for example, there are 12 hours in daytime, so, or there are 12 hours between sunrise and sunset. So you divide it by 8. So 12 divided by 8 is 1.5, which means that 1.5 hours is the portion given to each of these planets. 7 planets, and 1 portion does not have any lord. And according to Sage Parashar, according to the scriptures, and according to even other scholars, the portion which is ruled by Saturn will be the portion of Gulika. Okay, so we're very clear on that. Now, this is the case we discussed when it's a Sunday, and that's when it starts from a Sunday. Say for example, it's a Tuesday when the person is born, then you start from Mars. So the first portion is going to be, and assume that there are 12 hours in daytime, and based on the same assumption, it'll be 90 minutes per portion because there are 8 portions. But then in this case, the first portion, because it's a Tuesday, is going to be ruled by Mars. The second portion is going to be ruled by Mercury. The third portion is going to be ruled by Jupiter. The fourth portion is going to be ruled by Venus. The fifth portion is going to be ruled by Saturn. The sixth portion is going to be no lord. The seventh portion is going to be ruled by Sun. The eighth portion is going to be ruled by Moon. Okay, so that is how the portions are figured out. And then whichever portion is ruled by Saturn will be the portion of Gulika, or if you want to call it in Sanskrit, Gulik. Okay, and then once you know what is the portion of Saturn, then it is very easy to figure out where that position of Gulika is. So you just find out when the portion of Saturn begins. Okay, because that's very natural. You're going to ask, well, if it's 1.5 hours portion, then how do we figure out where is Gulika placed? So you just find out the time, exact time, when the portion of Saturn begins, and see what is the time. And based on that time, you will see the ascendant, which will give you the longitude. So whatever is the ascendant at the time when the Saturn portion just begins, you draw a chart. Whatever is the longitude, whatever is the degrees, whatever is the longitude at that time is the longitude of Gulika, and you just place it on the birth chart. Okay, the second thing, very easy, just go ahead, look for a software which gives you a position of Gulik or Gulika, and then you don't even have to do this calculation. But I just wanted to go over with you as to how you find out where Gulika, which is the son of Saturn, placed. And it's very important to know Gulika because Gulika is a very malefic point in a birth chart, and the scriptures have described as to what are the effects of Gulika in a person's life based on its placement in the birth chart. Okay, so according to the scriptures, in case Gulika falls in the first house, then the person is going to have eye problems, and he will generally be very cruel. Very cruel. It's a malefic point. Well, before I even go into the first house, wherever Gulika is placed, the lord of that house behaves as a maraka, a killer for that. So of course we know that the maraka planets are based on the lords of the second and the seventh house, and of course malefics placed in the second and the seventh house. But other than that, it is Saturn also, which is a maraka. But other than Saturn, it is Gulika as well. So look at where Gulika is placed, and generally the lord of that house becomes a big maraka where Gulika is placed. Or if Gulika is in conjunction with a planet where it is placed, that also becomes a maraka. And also seventh from Gulika, see, seventh from Gulika, the house which is seventh from Gulika, the lord of that house also becomes a maraka for that birth chart, or a killer planet. And also any planets placed in seventh from the Gulika also become maraka, or acquire maraka or killing properties or capabilities to kill. Not generally, like I said, there are different ways to figure out maraka, and if you want to go into more detail, go into my other video on maraka planets. But Gulika also has that capability to kill as per the ancient scriptures. Now going back to what happens when Gulika is placed in the first house. Gulika, when is placed in the first house, makes a person very cruel, and he could have eye problems. And this is directly coming from the ancient scriptures. It's not a figment of my imagination, or it's not a cut and paste. It's coming from the scriptures. In case Gulika is placed in the second house, and second house, what we know is it's actually a house of speech, it's a house of family, it's a house of money. So all these factors, or significations rather, are going to be affected adversely. So the person generally will be speaking bad for others. He has family problems, he has money problems, he has wealth issues, because second house is a house of wealth and money as well. So that is what is the effect of when Gulika is placed in the second house. In case Gulika is placed in the third house, he generally has a confrontation of, or trouble with his siblings, because his third house is the house of siblings, and he's not a very social person. In case Gulika is placed in the fourth house, he lives in an unclean environment, because fourth house is our dwelling, our house where we live. And also it's going to have troubles related to his vehicles, because fourth house is a house of vehicles as well, as we know. So it's pretty simple and straightforward. The significations of the house where Gulika is placed are going to be adversely affected, as we can see. The fifth house, of course, if Gulika is placed in the fifth house is a house of children, it's a house of intelligence, it's a house of pleasures. All these factors, or all these significations, are going to be adversely affected. In case Gulika is sitting in the sixth house, then of course he'll be bothered by enemies. Sixth house is a house of enemies. He could be bothered by diseases as well. In case Gulika is sitting in the seventh house, it is generally a very, very problematic area in terms of relationship with the spouse. Okay, generally it's seen that people who have Gulika in the seventh house, they don't trust their spouse that easy. In case it's sitting in the eighth house, of course, this eighth house is a house of chronic diseases, it's a house of longevity. All these significations are going to be adversely affected. In case it's sitting in the ninth house, well, problems to the father, Could be even as strong as early death of the father, because Gulika, like I said, it's extremely malefic astrological point. It's not a physical planet, it's a subplanet, but it has the power to give extreme malefic effects. In case it's in the 10th house, professional problems. In case it's in the 11th house, then generally it is believed that in this particular house it may not give that kind of a problem as we've discussed in the other houses. In 11th house, Gulika, as per ancient scriptures, does not give problems, and sometimes Gulika can give wealth as well, gains as well. It's a house of gains. In case it's in the 12th house, problems related to expenditure. So according to the ancient scriptures, out of these 12 houses, the only position where Gulika can give you some benefits is the 11th house, where you can get some gains. And sometimes gain can be from older siblings, and it could be positive in terms of monetary gains. So this was the effect of Gulika. We first discussed about how to calculate the placement of Gulika, what Gulika is, and then we discussed as to what is the effect of Gulika in various houses. Now sometimes Gulika is sitting along with other planets, so in case it's conjunct with other planets, the ancient scriptures say that in case Gulika is with Sun, there's a problem, because Sun is a significator, natural significator of father. So it is harmful for the longevity of the father, health of the father, even success of the father, so as to say. And in case Gulika is sitting with the moon, the planet moon, then of course it could affect the mother's health. It could affect the longevity of the mother. It could affect your own happiness from your own mother. Okay? And in case Gulika is sitting with Mars, of course, Mars is about siblings. It's his karaka or significator of siblings, so problem with siblings. Or he'll not have siblings. If there are siblings, then there'll be problem with the siblings. Similarly, in case Gulika is sitting with Mercury, or if it's conjunct Mercury, then of course it could affect the nervous system, because Mercury rules the nerves, the mind, the intelligence. If Gulika is sitting with Jupiter, well, then of course his religious growth or spiritual advancement gets adversely affected. Or sometimes he could get just too religious, become like a fanatic. So it could just disturb his balance of his spiritualism and his higher intelligence and his follow of dharma, as to say, or you can call it religion, whatever. In case Gulika is sitting with Venus, well, what is Venus? Venus is about women. So troubles from women, troubles in marriage. Why? In case of a man's chart, even in case of a woman's chart, it's a natural significator for spouse. So troubles in married life, definitely. Gulika and Saturn conjunction, very important. Well, Gulika is considered to be the son of Saturn, and if Saturn and Gulika are sitting together, Saturn is a karaka, significator of diseases. So then more diseases. It enhances Saturn's capability to do more harm, to provide more malefic effects. So watch out for that combination. Gulika and Rahu, again, diseases, infection, kinds of diseases which cannot be figured out. You cannot find out what kind of disease it is, cannot be diagnosed correctly. And in case it's sitting with Ketu, then there's fear from criminals and fire, and because Ketu is a hot planet, it behaves like Mars, as we know. And there's a saying in Vedic astrology which says that Shani with Rahu and Kuja with Ketu. So Rahu behaves like Saturn and Ketu behaves like Mars. Kuja is Mars. So when Gulika is sitting with Ketu, it's kind of a Angaraka dosha, where there could be fear from fire, and of course criminals, because Ketu sometimes it represents criminals as well. So this was a little discussion on Gulika, which is the sun of Saturn, and like I said, it's not a physical planet. It's not even given a status of a planet. It's a subplanet, and of course it's not physical. It's just an astrological point. Just like Rahu and Ketu are shadow planets, this also is an astrological point, which is extremely malefic, and we know how to calculate it. But sometimes Gulika can give good results as well. Like we know that Gulika in the 11th house can give good results. And sometimes, you have to look at the dispositor of Gulika, means which planet it's associated with, so just don't come to a conclusion based on what planet it's sitting with. It will give bad results in case the dispositor of Gulika, meaning which the conjunction of Gulika with another planet, or the lord of the zodiac sign where Gulika is sitting, they are not giving bad results. Sometimes they are giving good results. So the planet or the subplanet Gulika can, in combination with those planets which are the dispositors of where Gulika is sitting, can give good results also. But it's very rare. Don't just jump to any conclusion. It has to be judged by an expert Vedic scholar, astrologer, to be able to determine if Gulika can actually give good results. I mean, 90% of the cases Gulika gives bad results, but like I said, 11th house placement, and then sometimes the dispositor situation in the birth chart can also give some kind of a positive effect as far as Gulika is concerned. So hopefully you enjoyed this little video on Gulika. In the meanwhile, I will recommend subscribe to my channel, check out my website, there is a link below, and I will see you with an interesting topic on Vedic astrology very soon. Goodbye.